Hey, welcome back to the show, Brando.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Good to be here too. Episode 47.
With Ryan Guay.
Yes, I'm so jacked up. Ryan, thanks for joining us today. Let's just jump right in.
Thanks for having me, and yeah, good to be here.
Cool. Where'd you grow up? How did you get to Missoula?
Yeah, so I guess I was saying this a little bit earlier, but it's my third tour in Missoula. I was born here. My parents grew up here. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, everybody was here. My family moved us to Colorado when I was about 4, and so I grew up in Colorado. Then came back for college for a little bit, and then had to go chase career and was in Colorado again, San Diego.
What'd you go to school for?
Spanish.
Really? Wow.
And I was a pro cyclist in my late teens and early 20s, and my girlfriend and I moved up here. We were kind of doing the I'd call it the cyclist school, so it was like only go to school in the fall and then take the spring off to go race around the country, around the world. And but yeah, we just took a fall trip up here. I wanted to come see the family, and then we ended up staying and bought a house here and was here for about 3 or 4 years. And I'd also studied in Spain, so I had all these Spanish credits. And one day I walked into the office of the U here, and I was like, how can I just graduate? They're like, well, you got a lot of Spanish credits. So that's my degree.
That's incredible. Okay, I got so many questions.
Yeah.
So you were living here, went to Colorado, came back here, and then left. What did your parents do growing up? And then how did you get into cycling? How did you get into that professional circuit?
Yeah, luckily I grew up, my dad was a ski rep, worked in the ski industry, the outdoor industry. So we originally had moved to Salt Lake because he was a rep for Look and Nordica, ski bindings and boots. And we ended up in Colorado, but just always an active family. I think I missed more days of school than I ever went to because I was going to ski events and trade shows with my dad. And
that's the dream childhood.
And then at that time, I wanted to be a ski racer, and all the ski racers bike raced in the summer for training. And luckily in Boulder, Colorado at that time, we had this really cool kids bike race. It was called the Red Zinger Mini Classic, and it was 10 days every summer in Boulder, and only kids up to 16. And it was just cool. Started doing it. And then got into mountain biking and all that stuff, and raced in college. And then about 2 years, half abroad and half here, 1 year in Spain. So yeah, mainly road biking.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Why were you good at that, number one? And then tell me a little bit about, obviously, what did you leave Montana to go pursue career-wise?
Yeah, I don't know why I was good. I think I was just skinny and I could ride up mountains pretty good.
Didn't weigh much. Just light.
Yeah, but no, it was cool. Like, I was never the best junior, but as I kept on doing it and gotten more into mountain biking and everything, and just was stoked on it. And when I went to college in Durango, Colorado, we were the best mountain bike school in the country at that time, and all the pros were there. And it was the early days of mountain biking when there was a bunch of money behind it, and it was just a lot of hype, and it was just a rad way. And I always joke that, while I was sponsored, it was really my dad was my sponsor. My dad, mom like supported it. And I think more kids need to appreciate that. Dad's the sponsor, mom's the sponsor. And so I just had those opportunities. So it was cool. And I don't remember the second part of that.
That's okay. What led you away from Montana to chase a career? What were you doing at the time?
Yeah, for a brief little moment after I kind of quit my cycling days, I worked in town selling some reclaimed wood, and it was going fine. It was kind of my first real job outside of, cycling and school. But then ultimately my dad called, and he's like, hey, one of my reps just quit, and do you want to come to work for me in the family business? And so I moved back to Colorado to go to work for my dad, and selling all things from Merrell footwear to Smart Wool socks, snowshoes, just really intertwined into the outdoor sports and camping industry, I would say.
What's that? Oh, no, I'm so into his story.
I got a question.
Okay, go for it.
Tell me about working in the family business. Was that good and challenging? And did you gravitate towards sales, or was it mostly I love to do all this stuff. It's really easy to talk to people about all this equipment that I already love.
Well, I guess my challenge in the reclaimed wood business was that we had really uptight customers that were building mega homes up here and looking for old dirty wood that all matched. And I'm like, old dirty wood doesn't match. You're like, that's the whole point
Good
of
luck
it.
with that.
Just the stress levels was like out of my wheelhouse. And so going back into family business, which I'd always been around, but also it was more my peer group and around people that were doing the same stuff. And yeah, working in the family business, working for dad can be tough, but learned a lot. And ultimately there was a moment where I was like, okay, I got to break off, and I moved to California to work in the surf industry, and got into that because of paddleboarding. I was a kayaker, and all of a sudden I had kids, and running hard whitewater wasn't as, there was a little bit more risk. And so paddleboards came around, and we were running, class 2, class 3 rivers on paddleboards, going like, whoa, this is cool. And pretty much I'm confident I'm not going to die. And yeah, then the company Boardworks that brought me out to California, I was in San Diego, to bring it full circle to where we are at Flated. We were one of the first brands to bring inflatable paddleboards into the market. And, so, and at that time, everybody laughed at us. Our competitors were like, oh, those things are a joke. They're not going to work, and they're going to pop. And, but then, yeah, it's today, like most, 90% of paddleboards sold worldwide are all inflatable. And so kind of, got us thinking at some point, what else can we do with that stuff?
It's funny. Just this morning, Nick, our producer, and I was brainstorming on what is out there that hasn't been inflated yet, an inflated version of. Yeah. And I think you guys got the market pretty much saturated, under control, from toppers to like cargo carriers. Like, you guys have
really
done a great job.
Based on what we learned in the paddleboard industry, we were trying to sell 12 to 14 foot fiberglass boards. And not only was that a challenge for the business, just the logistics of bringing them in from Asia, warehousing them, shipping them to the consumer, it was just a struggle. And so then when inflatable boards came out, it like solved so many of those problems on the business side. We went from being able to put 100 boards on a container to 400 boards, and like it just made sense. And the consumers, the space savings for them at home, and so we started, when we kind of came up with Flated, we were trying to think of different things that normally take up way too much room when you're not using them.
Have you been on a paddleboard?
Yeah.
I was on one this summer in Glacier, and I was blown away, like McDonald. How it doesn't even feel like it's inflated. Yeah. Like, they are so stable, so strong.
And the technology's come a long way since those first years in 2010 when we were making them. The material's gotten stiffer, more durable, welded seams, all these different things. Yeah. But yeah, it blows people's mind. I mean, a lot of times, like at trade shows, I have to tell people like, hey, have you seen an inflatable topper? And they're like, whoa, wait, that's inflated? They don't really get it until, they really start playing around with it and looking at it. And our online critics are always like, oh, it's going to blow off. It's a balloon. Mm-hmm. And, same things we heard in the paddleboard industry.
Right. Sure.
Right. Going into automotive has been, great, but also there's plenty of skeptics online.
So take me back. Well, I mean, in my mind, we skipped a few steps.
Yeah.
So you leave the family business, you go into the surf business. When did your company start? And tell us about the transformation of paddleboards to now what you do. Give us a little overview of that.
Yeah, I was in the surf and paddleboard industry, I guess, for about 9 years, 2 different brands in that time. And there was a moment in about, I don't know, let's call it 2015-ish, where all of a sudden the market was getting really saturated. Costco started selling boards for $400, mm-hmm. and the Asian factories were selling direct on Amazon, and it just got a little bit, it was just a race to the bottom in price.
Right.
And so my business partners and I, we were always, specifically Monique, who's our CFO, we'd always go for these like lunches and talk about brands we could start. And, we were a big part of running those brands, and with, some, let's call it some old school like mentality and not really being progressive. And we just always wanted to run a brand of our own and the way we wanted to run it. And so threw out all sorts of different ideas. We started some businesses in the meantime, some little side projects. And I moved back to Colorado for a slight minute to try to get back into the outdoors and back into the mountains. And so went back into the ski industry in 2019. And then 2020 happened and the pandemic. I found myself unemployed for the first time in my adult life. And it was like, hey, remember that crazy conversation we had over a few beers about making some rooftop things for cars? And it was that moment, it was really the pandemic. If it wouldn't have been for the pandemic, I don't think we would be here talking about it.
You just said something that created an idea: inflatable skis. Inflatable snowboards. Is it something? Do we have something here?
I have some ideas, and not necessarily on skis, but there could be some interesting backcountry approach sort of options there.
Just great idea. There you go. Yeah, I'm all in. Let's go. Sorry, I interrupted you there. So you were back unemployed, went back to this whole idea.
Yeah.
And then you guys obviously started the company. What was that like?
Well, one of our other partners in the company is Ken Hovey. He lives outside of Vail, and he's a character that I've sponsored with every brand I've ever worked for, because he's great. He just goes out and does adventures all the time and creates a bunch of really good content. And then he had actually originally called me with the idea a few years before that, and it was similar. It was based off of a fly rod box and some other stuff, and I was like, yeah, okay. I didn't have the balls to leave my real job, and none of us did. None of us could leave our paycheck. And so when pandemic happened, and when all of a sudden I get a call from Ken, and I'm with my wife, we're driving to the Green River for a 6-day river trip where we're going to have no cell service for 6 days. And Ken's all fired up, and he's like, you know what? You guys aren't ever going to do anything with this. Like, I need you guys to do this. And, maybe I should just go to this guy or that guy and have him like help me out with this. And I was like, no, trust me. I'm working on it. And then I lose coverage for 6 days. And I sat on that raft for 6 days thinking about like, okay, I'm going to get back and I'm going to start this thing, at least give it a go. Cause I knew we had a really cool, unique idea that had never been done before. Mm-hmm. Every other thing we had tried to start or thought about, you Google it and you're like, oh, somebody's already done it. So this was just kind of one of those moments where I'm like, and so I got back from that river trip and I locked myself in the basement for about 3 days and tried to teach myself AutoCAD to like put a 3D like drawing into what I was envisioning for it. And it came out okay. It came out, it proved the concept, because I think the four of us who are now all co-founders, we were kind of all had a different idea of it. And then, once I showed that to my business partners, and most importantly, Dan, who's our product designer, he's like, okay, that looks good. I can get it, but I could do it way better.
That's what you want.
Yeah. So, and then we started sampling products in 2020. We knew the factories, we knew the connections, we knew the best materials. We had been using that stuff forever. Just, we had to come up, there were some hurdles in the like construction and making bends and 90-degree bends. And and our first samples that the factory made were horrific.
You still have those? You still have those samples laying around?
I have photos, and I still have my first topper sitting in our shop that I drove for 2 years. And I only took it off last year because my mom was in town, and she's like, that's looking a little beat up. Maybe you should put a nice one on. I'm like, yeah, but I want to use it till it's done. And it's awesome. It's come a long ways.
So what in your four business partners, like what is your role specifically? What are your strengths? Why? I guess I'm not asking this question the way that I want to ask it, but what put you in a position to roll this out? Are you like the ideas guy? Are you the get stuff done guy? Are you?
I've always had sales management roles. Definitely always been more on the sales side. But working with smaller brands and in the surf industry and the ski industry, sales and marketing are blending more and more together, I think, these days. And so, my role primarily, it's my business card says CEO. I say I'm the head janitor, but I'm really mostly in charge of, the sales strategy and everything else. But
when you guys, you said 2020 you launched?
Yep.
And were you full time? That was
when we first, why I guess I came back to Missoula was I sat through pandemic all summer in Denver, and Denver was, not a really great place to be in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we just took a road trip up here in the fall to go stay at a family house. Did the whole buy a van, load up the family. We're going to go up there and see how it is. And then my daughter really loved it, and we just never left. But I got super distracted where I was going with that.
Oh, were you full time?
Oh, no. Then my two partners, so Monique, and going back to our team structure, all four of us as partners bring a different skill level and a different focus. So Monique is all things finance and all things money, and she keeps us in line. And the most important business partner in the company, because she runs a tight ship on us. And then Dan Watts, he's our product designer. He has a long history of designing stuff in the surf industry, the snowboard industry. And then Ken, who's content marketing. Just so we all of us coming together, we can really, we've been able to run a lot of stuff without any outside help.
How do you guys manage conflict internally with the four of you?
Luckily we don't have a lot of it, but with partners, there's always differences.
Four strong personalities. There's going to be
we do pretty well. We have one angel investor that came in early on, and so sometimes he can kind of be a tiebreaker or kind of give us some insight on his experiences in business and maybe what he sees from the outside. He's not day to day in the business, but he's involved, weekly on our calls and stuff. So, it's fun.
one question, and then I want to hop into our rapid fire questions. What is Flated? Let me ask you, what is Flated? What is your company? What do you guys do?
So Flated is what I would say we make automotive accessories that create usable space on your automobile when you need it, and then save space when you don't. So they deflate, roll up in a bag, and go on a shelf. One of our joking hashtags is eliminate yard art. And you guys know it from Missoula driving around.
I love it.
It won't take you more than 3 or 4 blocks to find an old fiberglass topper sitting on the side of somebody's house on sawhorses.
Yeah,
totally.
With birds and squirrels underneath. Yep. And so our first initial idea was an inflatable truck topper, and then we have an inflatable bed insert that goes in the back of the truck to create sleeping platform but still has space underneath. And we were really focused on those two products. And then Monique, our CFO, was like, hey guys, I'm the only one here on the team that doesn't have a truck. What can you make for my SUV? And that's when we came out with the Air Carrier, which is an inflatable cargo box. So instead of a big plastic, I won't name brands, but the big plastic ones that you see also on the side of houses or in people's garages. And so we're just looking at those things to try to make, again, something that you can take on and off easily and store easily.
I lied. I said one more question, but I had 2.
All good.
What's next? Any other ideas coming? You guys?
We have, the problem is you were mentioning before the show, there's a lot of potential that we can make stuff, inflatable options. We have to bring ourselves in from time to time to be like, hey, let's really focus in on this truck market for right now. Our biggest challenge has been, fitment on, making sure we fit all the most common size trucks, fitting those better.
So you guys have to pay attention to the new models of trucks coming out and the size of beds.
And when we launched, we had 3 sizes, and those were based off the 3 trucks that we all owned that we could test. But we've learned a lot from our customers on how they're using them, what trucks they're requesting. Now we probably have about 12 different sizes and 2 different models. and probably need about 6 or 7 more sizes, I would say, to like have the international modern truck market kind of dialed.
Wow.
That's awesome.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of manufacturing.
Rapid fire questions.
All right. You
Take
ready?
it away.
Yeah.
First memory of Missoula, Montana.
First memory of Missoula, Montana. I just have weird childhood memories that I can't quite pinpoint of how or why. Really what I remember the most is coming up here in the summers and staying at my grandparents' house. And my grandmother was a total character, and she'd just push us all outside and just be like, go, just go. And, you know, my cousins and I and the neighborhood kids, I mean, we had fireworks and we had matches and we had, you know, bikes and all the stuff to go do, you know, sticks and BB guns and all the stuff.
That's
and
how childhood should be.
I didn't have that access to that sort of freedom and fun in Boulder, Colorado. So when I came up here in the summers, it was just more like, let's go. And
what neighborhood did she live in? Do you remember?
Over in the Wapakia neighborhood over here. And the house is still, you know, in the family. And that's actually the first house that we lived in when we moved back here. And, you know, part of this move was to cut all of our fixed costs to start Flated. And so their house had been vacant since they had passed away. And my family, we moved in there and, you know, sort of stayed 2 years in there and started, you know, working on the brand. But it'd go and circle way back. I did get another job in that 2001 period with a hunting company out of Whitefish to kind of bridge the gap to, you know, being able to, you know, really go full time.
What is your favorite coffee shop here in Missoula?
Coffee shop, I would say Florence Coffee.
Beautiful. What's your favorite restaurant?
Favorite restaurant? Mo Club Burger.
Solid. Ryan, what zip code do you live in?
59804.
Still getting it wrapped around. What's the weirdest thing about Missoula to you?
The weirdest thing about Missoula is the outside perception from my rancher family and other people that are like, oh, Missoula is, you know, so liberal and all this and that. And I'm like, well, I've lived in Boulder, Colorado. I've lived in San Diego. So it's pretty like even normal, I would say. But I would say it's more the outside perception of Missoula. I love it. I love the kind of the grittier vibe than, you know, the Bozeman people over there. I really like the community. I've developed some really, really good, like, guy friends here that all have young kids that all like to go fishing and hunting and, you know, take our kids outside. And so I think that's been, you know, the best part.
I kid you not, moments before you walked in the studio, Steven and I were talking about the other city, the neighbors.
Yeah.
Just how different it is from Missoula and how much they think they're better than us, but we know we're better than them. Like that whole, you know, yeah.
I like the other city, but
we just don't mention them. We just don't. This is the Missoula podcast. Ryan, is there what was I going to say? What do you love the most about Missoula?
Access to the outdoors.
Totally.
You know, just when I lived in San Diego, I could go surf really easily, or paddle or do something on the ocean, but to go ride a mountain bike or to go hunting or anything like that was like you had to battle traffic and battle stuff. And, you know, here, you know, within minutes we can be on the Blackfoot or we can be, you know, I can fish in my backyard on the Clark Fork, like where I live. And I like that. And, you know,
shoot, this last winter you could have mountain biked and skied in the same day.
Yeah, this past winter.
Yeah, pretty crazy, but no, such a special place.
Yeah.
Is there a particular book that you've read that has made a drastic impact on your life?
Yeah, lots of them. One of my favorites is Undaunted Courage, the Lewis and Clark.
It's a big book.
Stephen Ambrose from here wrote it, but read that really early on when I was living here in my 20s, and just the inspiration. Going, man, if these guys can walk across the country with all these people and stuff and with not even knowing what's around the corner. You know, I think there's
crazy,
you know, we complain about a little bit of traffic or a little bit of snow and thinking about those guys just, you know, roaming across the U.S., not knowing where they're going to go. So that's always been an inspiring one.
It's amazing. That was burning 5 questions. No, burning 7. I can't remember what
there
they
are.
Yeah.
Let's jump back into the business. So when was the turning point for Flated where things started to take off and you're like, okay, we're rolling now?
Well, we launched our brand a little unconventionally. We knew all of our competitors in the inflatable space, and they all kind of knew we were working on something, but they had no clue what we were working on. And they probably thought we were doing something in kayaks or paddle boards or something like that.
And it was just all kind of hush hush. You guys were keeping it real quiet.
Kept it really quiet.
Yeah.
We were going through some, protecting our IP and, applying for patents and all that. And, but we ordered a full container of product, and that was on the way, and turned on our website like basically 5 days before that container landed. So made the risk of and we just wanted to turn the website on in stock with 3 good products. And it was funny, the first day, we sold a couple things right away, randomly. And we're like, whoa, okay.
What was that feeling? You see that
awesome
sale go through? Just, wow.
Yeah. Just, spine tingling, oh, no way. How'd they find us? And my product designer had actually sold one product, one of our air carriers locally, because he was driving around with it. And this guy just found our Instagram page and was hitting us up. He's like, I need one of those. And we're like, all right. And, so he was actually our first customer. But, we did better than we thought that first month. So we knew we had a good idea. It was working. We had some really viral stuff happen, through social media posts. TikTok was really good for us early on, just to get a lot of eyeballs. And, but then, part way through 22, I guess it would have been, we got a call from Shark Tank, and, we started going through that application process, I would call it. I'd never really thought I was going to go that route because I had some preconceived notions or whatever, but once I started hearing, talking with the producers and going through the process, I knew it was legit and we could have a real chance.
I'm excited. I really want to talk about that and hear a little bit about kind of behind the scenes, what that was like, and let our audience listeners hear about your experience. You said they reached out to you.
We got a random call. Yeah.
Wild.
And
how'd they find you?
Through an article. And, we had a PR firm our first year that was helping us out. And there was an article that was seen, and there's a good history of inflatable products that have been through Shark Tank. And we started just going through the process going, hey, let's just see if we can get on.
Yeah. So prior to this, were you a fan of Shark Tank? Were you watching it?
Yeah, I've always been a huge fan, and I think it's been a part of my entrepreneurial journey.
It's great.
I've always watched the shows, always learned from
Absolutely.
the brands and the people that go on there and the feedback from the sharks. So
So when you applied, was the goal? Were you guys really looking for a strategic partner investor, or is this more of a, hey, this is some great publicity, marketing, let's keep just moving forward?
June of 22, we kind of had a cash crunch. We were selling, but we weren't selling quite enough. There was, to sell that much, you got to buy more stuff. And, we're kind of running out of money. We'd spent a lot of money on our IP and on attorneys to get all that done. And it was kind of a weird moment where we're like, is this going to work or not? But that was the same time we were kind of talking with, the Shark Tank crew. And, it was let's just see how it goes. Let's just, take all the phone calls, do all the auditions, and see where it leads us. And, we kind of just took that approach. And so, one day we got a call hey, you guys are coming out to film. And we're like, okay, here we go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about getting ready for your pitch on Shark Tank. How much time did you spend on dialing in all the specifics?
The hardest part,
I've watched it back. The 3 of you have it nailed.
The hardest part for me was I'm not the entertainer, so to speak. I was really confident in answering questions about the brand, the numbers, all of that. But that opening moment where you got to go out there and, it's like you see on TV. You walk out there, they're right there. And, they don't take any cuts. You're there. And so
what's more intimidating, walking into Shark Tank or walking into the Missoula podcast studio.
You guys are way rougher.
So is that the first time you meet the sharks, see the sharks? There's no behind the scenes, doors open, and that's it.
Yeah, the first time, I mean, you're in sort of a back green room, and they're like, you're on within the next half hour, and then all of a sudden you're like, you're on, and you're going. And yeah, luckily Ken Hovey, who's one of our partners, he has a long history of being on air. He was the weatherman in Vail for years.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so we kind of let Ken lead with the energetic and the emotion. And he, the whole time when we were practicing, he was always just like, come on. He was always trying to raise my level up to be, more animated. And that's a little bit hard for me, but.
So where
inauthentic?
Where did you guys record? Where's the studio? You flew.
It was LA area.
Oh, LA.
Yeah.
And when did you guys record? What was the timeline from recording day to air date?
September of 21, and then we aired in March of
22.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and we like anybody, we kind of got beat up for a while from the Sharks on our valuation and everything, but ultimately they really came around, I would say, and it happened so fast, and then you walk off, you're like,
you blacked out.
Wait,
what'd the day look like? Walk us through the day of recording. And
early morning, go, bit of waiting around until everybody's ready, and then you air, and then pretty quickly after that you're shuttled back to the hotel, and we're just reminded that you now cannot talk about this to anybody.
Sure.
No, I've heard that there's multiple cameras, that what we see on TV when we're watching Shark Tank, that 7 to 10 minute clip could be a couple hours of filming time. What was that?
Yeah,
like for you guys?
It's a lot longer than you would see, it's definitely edited down. But they never stop filming. So there's never like a cut, let's redo it.
Yeah.
It's just you're in front of them. And those sharks are really good. They're really fast. And that's the hardest part, I think, is standing up there and they start throwing number questions at you. And, they're writing stuff down,
right,
and they're looking stuff up on their phones, and you're standing in front of them just trying to do the math really quick. And luckily Monique, our CFO, just nailed all the numbers.
She's quick.
Yeah, she knew everything. And, by the end, Kevin was really liking Monique, because she was like, you're the, I think it was in there where he's like, you're the boss.
Did you agreed with him?
Yeah.
Do emotions mellow a little bit, where it comes into a little bit more just you're having conversation with the Sharks rather than this well-polished proposal?
Yeah, no, they while we got beat up, they were actually all really cool too. There wasn't any moment where it was really frustrating, or there's some moments where you get maybe interrupted and you want to finish what you wanted to say, and then you just always have that thing of I need to get a little bit more in. But
go ahead.
Yeah, going into it, did you guys have a specific shark that you were hoping a deal would be made with, or were you like, let's just see what happens?
Thinking back on it, I don't know. I think everybody kind of wants Mark Cuban for some reason, just because he's the one with the most money, but also,
why wouldn't you want Mark Cuban?
But, we also, you're trying to do research and see what they're all into. And, we knew that, the Robert's kind of the car guy, but in all my research, I couldn't find if he had a truck or not. So I was trying to figure out who would relate to truck products. And
sure,
I'd say the only frustration out of it was we couldn't get a truck on set. And so we kind of had to make a fake, truck bed. And it just looks so much better on a real truck to get people to understand what we're actually talking about. And previously they had vans and trucks on there, but the set was a little smaller when we filmed. So, but yeah, just total whirlwind. And then, you go home, and again, it's just, you just cannot, you can't tell your grandmother what happened.
Yeah.
You can't, you cannot talk about it. And that's the hardest part. And then you don't really still know if you're actually going to air or not. But yeah, it was really cool when, Damon gave us an offer, and, I'd kind of known that Damon had done a lot of, kind of outdoorsy stuff, and, he's an outdoorsman himself. And, so yeah, it was good.
It was awesome. Do you recall, who was the first shark to go out?
Mark was the first one to go out.
And how quickly into the process was he out?
Pretty quick. Frustratingly quick.
Yeah.
So then does he just sit there and play on his phone while you're talking to the other sharks?
No, he was very involved the rest of the time. One thing that we got beat up on a little bit, and this is all on air, so there's, they were all really concerned that we weren't all full time. And they were really hung up on that. And, we were kind of like, the way we actually started the brand was pretty strategic on, I went and got another job while Dan was doing all the design work. Monique was doing all the legal stuff and getting all set up. There was nothing to do really for a year there in my role. So I went and got another job to, support my family in that time. And then when we finally launched, I was the first one to go full time. And then they kind of went back to some side gigs because we weren't taking paychecks.
Right.
And it's not very easy to, sustain yourself with kids and a family with no paycheck for very long.
Right.
Yeah.
When you guys went in your initial pitch, what were you guys seeking in a deal? Do you recall?
We asked for $350,000 for 5% of the company, which gave us a $7 million valuation.
Okay. And then would you guys end up agreeing with Damon?
A no equity deal, but a royalty 8% until he got his money back, and then a 5% after that.
Awesome.
Wow.
Do you enjoy Damon? Enjoy working with him and his team?
Damon and his team have been great. I mean, super supportive and really, really honest and no issues there. And the last time I was chatting with him, he was telling me about a new truck he was buying and needed a topper. And so
that's awesome.
Can't wait to see that on there at some point.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Wonderful was really harsh at first.
Just with your evaluation?
With evaluation.
Yeah.
And then...
And no royalty deal, so he was out.
Yeah, and we really didn't expect a royalty offer from Damon. Like, that was kind of like... He doesn't usually throw those out there like that. And so we had to go back and kind of chat for a second. And, and you don't have much time. You really have
It's a lot of pressure. Yeah. It's like our business's future in a couple of minutes deciding. I can't even imagine the pressure. Luckily,
but I think that just the hardest part was, the criticism on all of us not working full time on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, but like I said, it's been really good that we did that because now we're, pretty much debt free and we're doing
awesome.
well and everybody is now working full time, but it takes longer than you think.
Did you see a couple more Shark Tank questions? I know some just life business questions. Did you guys see an immediate increase in
what was cool?
Sales, not just people going to the website and checking you out, but did Shark Tank help put you guys on the map?
We had a viewing party or whatever down at Press Box, and
cool.
We had invited about 80 people down there. Like I said, I have a lot of friends and family here still, so we ended up, I think there was over 100 people upstairs at the Press Box, which don't tell the fire department because it was definitely over. And then Hannah, who runs our customer service, she was there on our computer, like watching the website traffic. And when it aired, East Coast, all of a sudden we had like 80,000 people on our website. And our product isn't necessarily a impulse buy price. So we really, that night we sold a lot, but the next 3 days we sold out of almost everything we had in the warehouse. Had to go on pre-order. And
awesome. How cool for you guys.
It was a
big spike. A fun week.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. For the past year, we've always been like comparing our numbers. Like we're like, we can't compare March of last year because that was Shark Tank month. But since then it's built up enough that, monthly we're doing more than that. And then,
you guys made it happen.
Yeah. But
it's viable and that's awesome.
Yeah. And then the greatest part about it is all the reruns are starting now.
Yeah, that's true.
There we go.
So randomly, and we knew when the first re-air was going to happen, but now it'll just be like, wait, there's a bunch of extra traffic on the site. It must be airing somewhere. My grandmother calls me. She's like, you're on TV again.
That's so awesome.
So that's really helped.
Your kids.
Yeah, that was my question.
Was it?
Do your kids think you're cool now? Or
like, Dad was on Shark Tank.
I don't know. I think kids never think we're cool.
That's true. That's what we want. We want our kids to think we're rad.
No,
Your mom think you're cool.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
my 8-year-old yesterday is like, Dad, I saw a flated topper yesterday, and I was like, okay, that's cool. He understands it. He feels part of the brand.
It's crazy. I'm starting to see them all over now. And just this morning on the way here, going down Reserve Street, Reserve and South Avenue, and there's a flated.
I was really worried I was going to be late today because I was at the gas station and guy walks up and he has his buddy come out of the truck. He's like, what the hell? He's like, is that really full of air? And and we had one YouTuber recently do a review and they're like, the pros and cons. And he's like, the only con is you got to, allocate probably an extra 20 minutes at every gas stop because somebody's going to come ask you what the hell it is.
What a great review.
That's so great.
Yeah.
And you're proof of that.
Awesome. So back to like just business, as you guys are growing this, have you developed a team? Is it more than you four now?
We're still tight. It's us four, with everybody now, pretty much working full time.
Yeah.
We have one full-time, customer service, girl who lives up in Whitefish, who I worked with a previous brand. And so I brought her over. She started part-time last year around this time and then, worked into full-time. And then I have another guy here in town that helps us in our warehouse here, which isn't where we ship out of, but all returns and things and product samples come here first. And especially when we're working on a new size. With my product designer in San Diego, it's a lot easier for me to find any truck here in Missoula.
Sure.
Like
do you guys have any retail? Any walk-in, or is it all online?
All online. We do sell through, a number of like 4x4 accessory shops. Blue Ribbon here in town is selling for us.
So that'd be like your showroom if you're locally and want to check out the product.
JK Customs has
okay.
sold some stuff. And then, online, we sell through REI as well. That's kind of our outdoor, segment. But we like selling direct off our site.
I'm gonna go a little deeper here now. So you guys you launched in 2020. You're 4 years old, roughly, give or take. Hasn't always been easy. As you mentioned, 2022 things were getting tight. What are some of the life lessons you've learned being an entrepreneur? Leaving that guaranteed paycheck, going out on your own and just getting it done?
Yeah, I think the hardest is having some patience. You think it's just going to start, but then it just takes longer than you think. And then, it's rolling and it's growing, but like, I don't know, I think people start businesses and they think it's just going to automatically pop off. And then the other part is when you don't know how to do something, instead of just going out and hiring somebody, figure out if you could learn how to do it first. There's so many ways that you can teach yourself how to do, if it's online marketing or computer stuff or whatever, Google it, go to YouTube, teach yourself or, allocate that lesson to somebody on the team. Because I think a lot of businesses, outsource way too much stuff way too early and they build, they dig a real big financial, hole of debt. And so we've taken a total like roll up your sleeves and like figure it out sort of, bootstrapping. But I'd say, and I tell this to people all the time, it's just, it's not about what you spend, it's about what you don't spend and making sure that you're as tight and, tactical as possible with how you're spending your money as a company.
That's really good advice. And that probably answers Steven's next question. Cause that's always, if you had a young entrepreneur sitting here, what would you tell them? And
you nailed it.
Be patient, do the research.
Yeah. And again, I can't I've had the privilege to work in like some really different industries. I moved from Colorado to work in the surf industry, which is one of the most opinionated cultures. And, there's a saying in California that surfers are the worst. They stay in their zone. They're really cliquey. They're really hard group of guys to break through on. So when I moved out there, I was like, I'm just going to submerge myself in this. I'm going to, start surfing nonstop, but I'm also going to listen to all the surf podcasts. I'm going to, follow the events and like.
Did you grow your hair out?
I never growed my hair out.
Okay.
And then when I went back into the ski industry for a little bit, I mean, I kind of did the same thing. I'm like, how do I immerse myself back into this as much as I can? And then I went into the hunting industry and So I think that a lot of times, like, I think podcasts are one of the best ways to do it, to like really submerge yourself into a culture and know who's who's doing what. I'd start with, you can find a real estate podcast, you can find an insurance podcast, you can find a basket weaving podcast if you want, and like really just do your research and figure out who's who, what people are doing, get yourself into it. And and we're still doing this in the automotive industry, because the first time we went to the SEMA show in Vegas, Dan and I walk in there, we're like, oh, we don't know a single person in here. Like, we don't know who the players are. I mean, other than the giant booths that say Ford and Toyota and everything, right. But we don't know anybody in those booths. And we were used to, being in the outdoor industry, the surf industry, where we could walk in any booth and high five a bro and be like, hey, what's up? Oh. So, but yeah, doing your research and just learning, man, like just like really learning.
Yeah. Well, hey, so thrilled that you came back to Missoula, that you're, obviously using this as a sort of a headquarters in a way.
Yeah.
And then just to the impact that you're making. Appreciate you being on the show, and we'll check out the website and see if we can get you a hit today on some views. How's that sound?
Flated.com, and then our social channels are the more entertaining aspect. There's some videos there where we have to put disclaimers like, this is not the intended purpose of this inflatable truck topper, but it may or may not be floating down a river and fishing off of it.
That's awesome.
That's
so yeah,
so great, dude. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yep.
What's up, Missoula? This is Nick Balla, producer of the Missoula podcast. We truly appreciate you hanging out with us as we dive into the stories that make our city special. If you could do us a quick favor and follow the show wherever you are listening, whether that's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, maybe you're watching on YouTube, so hit that little subscribe button. It really helps us out. Head on over to www.themissoulapodcast.com for more information, and we'll see you next week.